Hello and welcome to Intune.training, the place to learn how to use Microsoft Intune. The Steve and Adam Show. It's Steve and Adam.
I'm
Hey, Steve.
That's Adam.
How's it going, buddy?
It's going pretty good, buddy. Yourself?
Oh, doing great. So this is going to be new for us. Steve and I have been going at this for about 5 years now. And if you are new here, welcome. We're glad to have you.
Welcome.
We know that every day there's new folks starting to look at Intune. So we at least want to introduce ourselves on this one. And if you've already been with us, just skip ahead and skip to the end.
We're sorry if we're repeating ourselves, but this is where we've had quite a lot of feedback over the years of, hey guys, like your old videos, they're not relevant anymore. It's like, yeah, you've got a point. That they really aren't. So,
but it takes a lot of work to put this stuff together, and there's been a lot of new stuff, and we, every time we put something out, it's we're trying to do fresh and new and different, and there's always been something new and different to talk about, and there still is, but we know that there's a need, so we're starting fresh. So this is going to be the intro to Intune, just kind of the Intune 101, talking about what Intune is. For folks that have, are brand new to this space. And then we're going to kind of get going from there. So just as a kind of a quick, I guess, background. So I'm Adam. I'm Microsoft MVP in Intune Enterprise Mobility. And I've come from a background doing config manager and an FTE at a company I've been at almost 20 years. And so been doing device management my whole career, and have recently, in the last 5 years, because of doing this channel, have migrated to Intune and moved into the full autopilot and all the other all the cloud stuff. And so that's if you've been with us this whole time, like that's been the journey that we've been on. And so if you want to see some of how that has changed and how we've grown, you can go back and see all the old stuff. But yeah, that's who I am.
Yep.
Steve.
So I'm Steve. So I work at Microsoft. I'm in the CAT team I'm in CAT. It's not CAT team because team is team. So
Customer Acceleration Team.
That's right. So we're in the customer. I'm in the Customer Acceleration team for Windows and around the Windows Auto Patch space as well. So I've been at Microsoft for 3 years. Preceding that, I was a Microsoft partner for 5 or 6 years and internal IT for 12 odd years. Over the years, I've been config manager, managing config manager environments, Intune environments, consultants for implementing all of these technologies, running around and doing custom code for random reasons, and all around just a generalist specialist.
And you were an MVP for a short time before you went over to Microsoft directly as well, right?
Yeah, I was an MVP for 3 years, I think, 4 years. So it's 2.5 years, 3 years. Yeah, 3 years. So yeah, I was MVP again in the mobility environment, and spent a lot of time playing around in that space.
Cool. Well, so before we dig in, at least want to give a shout out to the rest of the Intune training team that's been with us as we've gone. We've had a pile of special guests, but we've also had some folks that would never go away. So Ben Reeder, Jake Shackelford, and Jóhannes Kristjansson. And then special guest Sean Bolger, who's at Microsoft now. They've really helped carry the channel over the last 5 years, plus many special guests. A lot of Microsoft folks and things have come on, and a lot of that content still, we're not taking any content down, but just want to give a shout out to those guys as well for helping us get here. And so we'll probably see some faces as we move forward in the series here. So with all that said, let's jump right in, Steve. So we want to kind of have a background on Intune, because it's very possible that you've heard of Intune, your boss said do Intune, or you see, you've got a little bit of info about Intune, but not really sure what
you've seen it in the config manager portal.
Yeah. Or maybe you're coming from a on-prem shop. Maybe you're still doing config manager and you're finally getting a chance to look at Intune. And any and all walks of life there. Actually, I would love to see if you're interested in commenting in the comments on this video. We'd love to know what where you're coming from. To give us a little bit about who you are. We'd love to understand our audience so that we kind of can target that stuff. Yep. As I mentioned, I'm coming from the on-prem background, so very familiar with the challenges, still dealing with those challenges as we're migrating to fully Azure AD joined and all of those things. So anyway, we want to kind of jump into what is Intune, how does it differ from other management tools that you've used before, and get some baselines on definitions around the platform. So what better way to do that than to jump into Microsoft's docs.
Learn.microsoft.com.
Yeah. So learn.microsoft.com, and then this.
So that's one of the big changes that's occurred in the last 5 years is Docs has changed to Learn. But this is where what we're talking about and why we're referencing Docs is because compared to where it was 5 years ago, Docs Learn has a vast array of options there for the Intune platform. So it talks around that whole onboarding and what it is and how it works. When we first started, it was in its infancy, I'd probably say is the fair way of positioning it, Adam.
I would say so. Like, we were just looking through the docs trying to say, okay, let's start here. And I mean, look at all this stuff that exists now. This wasn't here long ago. This is, and much of what we're going to end up covering in the series here is stuff that you can just, they've got great things. We've got evaluate and try tasks, and it'll walk you through the admin portal. There weren't even any screenshots of this stuff before. And that's a huge change. So this is a great platform to start from. So if you just go to learn.microsoft.com/mem/Intune, fun fact, if you leave out the language here, it will just automatically take it to the correct region for wherever you're at. So so anyway, go there and start. That's kind of where we're headed. So let's just jump right in on the Intune overview. So I think this picture does a great job of kind of putting it all together here. So when we're talking Intune is a device management platform that's based in Microsoft's cloud, largely riding on, it's a complementary tool that rides on top of the Azure infrastructure, the Azure cloud.
Azure platform, I believe the term is there, Adam.
There you go. Thank you. Whatever, it's up there with it. And so, but it's equivalent to, Active Directory is the Azure Active Directory side of things. It's your on-prem Active Directory, which is now not Azure Active Directory. See, there you go. The Microsoft Intra ID is the new, is the equivalent to your on-prem Active Directory. And then you've got Intune, which would be equivalent to your on-prem config manager, or
with a little bit more.
Yes, exactly. But so I'm trying to draw the, if you're moving from on-prem to the cloud, that's kind of the base correlations there. But then Intune just blows up into having a whole pile of extra functionality that doesn't just exist. You would normally have to supplement with other tools to be able to produce the same features and feature set on-prem. Or if you're using third-party tools to do these things. So, depending on, a thing to me that was very interesting is that there's a lot of folks that have been using Intune for mobile device management, but not for their Windows device management. Like well before we really started this big push to use Autopilot and use Intune for Windows devices. So so you may be coming from that space of, well, I've been doing it for iOS, but maybe it's time to roll in some Windows devices, or you've been doing Android, whatever.
Mac OS.
Yeah.
Linux.
Yeah. So
Chrome OS.
Intune, I guess the base of Intune for the actual management side of the devices uses MDM, which stands for Mobile Device Management.
Yes.
But Steve likes to say that's not what it stands for.
That's correct. So what you should be looking at here is around managing your data. So MDM stands for Mobile Data Management. We're wanting to make sure corporate resources are corporate data. What makes you an organization is secure. If we need to manage the device in action to complete that, well, sure, we need to manage the device. But realistically, we should be sitting there and looking at the data and what we're putting onto the device and how we're keeping that secure. This is where conditional access becomes very important. This is where all of those really rich zero trust conversations become very important, making sure a device is secure before you put files on it. If the device isn't secure, removing access to those files. So it's driving that really simple narrative.
Yep. Now, I love that, okay, let's, the things that are the key features that we've talked about over the series, we've look at this. We've got I love how they're already highlighting the top areas that you should really be focusing.
Yep.
You're securing your identities. You're managing and controlling your devices. You're protecting your data. You've got zero trust. So those are all the major areas that would be the selling point for this is why you should be doing this. Now you may be asking, well, I've already using a third party to do this stuff, or this is too expensive, or, those things. Well, you've definitely got some organizational opportunities there for being able to make the value case. Obviously, every company has their own budgets and their own challenges around what you can bring in and what you can't. And definitely this is a premium product especially when you couple it with Azure Active Directory I'm never going to Intra ID. If you couple it with the whole Azure platform, how about that? And then you roll on, you add on the Microsoft 365 suite, which includes all of your Office products and many, many more things on top of that. And then you go the security side of things. So the lines are very blurry when you start looking at, we just want to do Intune. Well, okay, but at some point you're going to want to do some security, and you're going to start dabbling in the endpoint.
I still remember when we first started talking about doing and collaborating on Intune training, Adam. And we had the first night, and I'm like, yep, cool, let's do a video. We got the video out, and he's like, oh, cool, that's done. It's like, yeah, I'll see you next week. And it's like, what? I'm like, yeah, Intune's not like you just flick the switch and it's on. It's you need to tune it. You still need to do everything that you do on Config Manager, but it's simpler. I think that's the important thing to realize and remember is, and I'm sure, Adam, you can attest to this with your journey that you've taken recently, is moving to Intune is about simplifying your day-to-day operation.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. So you've heard the term single pane of glass tossed around and stuff, but I'm very much a believer in that. I always say I'm very anti third party when it comes to these things. So my device is running Windows. Let me use the tools that are built directly by the same people. Microsoft's building Windows, Microsoft's building Intune. That makes the most sense because their tools are likely going to have to be able to move and change as quickly as the Windows platform is changing. And so when new settings become available with a new OS, I know that Intune is going to have it first, and those sorts of things. So I really like that ability of being able to just using first party management for the device. But then just all of the value add that we've seen over the last 5 years of just all the extra pieces that, when we first started, we complained quite a bit about things where it's like, great example, application inventory.
Oh, yes.
People will still say, oh, Intune doesn't do app inventory. I would argue that Intune does just enough app inventory to meet pretty much most of your reporting needs. It's going to meet my needs, and I'm absolutely happy with moving over to the inventory that it's available now. the changes in the way that apps themselves get deployed. They just added an uninstall button that didn't exist up to, 3 months ago. So Intune is still absolutely growing, changing. They've added on a premium SKU that has even additional features that we'll get into at some point.
Oh yes.
But even all the
and
integrations
the Mac
with
support's increased.
Sorry, say that again.
Mac OS support has increased immensely. Same with Android. Heck, 5 years ago, wasn't even thought about adding Linux or Google in there now. And they're both in there as an option to be supported in Intune, albeit Steve, to a certain level.
You touched on conditional access for a moment there, and I think that's a really good one to kind of go down for a moment on one of the reasons that Intune is very beneficial is that you just mentioned that we've got, they've added new platforms. And the thing that we're seeing in those new platforms, the first pass, the first thing that's coming in is the ability to apply device compliance policies to those devices.
Yep.
And the purpose of that is so that you can tie the device compliance to a conditional access policy. And so let's go down conditional access for a moment. If you're not familiar with that term, it sets conditions for access to your company data.
Yes,
it's really that simple. So within Azure, you can go in and configure a policy that says, okay, if you're using this account, and you're on our business network, we have lower level, and you're on a trusted device.
MFA required.
We don't require MFA. But if you are traveling overseas and you're on a personal device or whatever, then you might need to add MFA to your credential to be able to log in to that device. And so that right out of the gate, we're having the ability to apply conditional access policies via device compliance policies to all of the platforms of devices that you potentially would support. And so now I can feel comfortable about, hey, I can have a Linux device that has access to my M365 stack of data. And you can go get on SharePoint, you can go get on OneDrive, and I know that I can apply conditional access policies to those devices and say, oh, they've passed the compliance checks, and so I can allow them to access that data more securely.
Exactly, and this is where that conditional access is around how do I access my endpoints and not necessarily devices either. So we'll talk more about conditional access in future videos, but it's one of the cornerstone features of that zero trust model.
Absolutely. Now, I want to highlight one of the key things on the page here as well. Oh, yeah, there you go. Zoom. The integration bit. So we've talked about the on-prem stuff. So configuration manager. So your current SCCM config manager infrastructure has the ability to connect directly into Intune. Microsoft still says, hey, config manager is not going anywhere. You can absolutely just connect it and leverage whichever pieces of Intune that you want to while you're still leveraging config manager. It's great to keep them connected as you do a transition. So for my org, we've been doing a migration to Windows 11. And as we're doing that, we're also doing a migration into Intune for our applications. So I'm able to deploy a Azure AD or Intra ID. It's going to take a long time.
Yes,
a cloud only device that's not domain joined. I can still install a config manager client on it through a cloud management gateway with no VPN. I can get back to my on-prem infrastructure, and I can install applications that are only available in config manager still on those new cloud only devices. And that's a huge win. We had about 1,500 applications, and it was like, well, if we need to wait on apps, we still would be waiting to go. But instead we said, no, look, all the apps will still work. You can just go install them. They'll all come down from config manager. And as we migrated them to Intune, we turned them off in config manager. So that's just one of the co-management opportunities that's available through config manager.
So that's probably part of what you're going to start seeing is you don't need to do modern management to go to Windows 11. So when we say modern management, this is where we're talking about Intune and cloud managed devices. But you can do both at the same time. You can bring your config manager stuff with you into AAD joined devices. So from a management point of view and management plane point of view, you could start sitting there and provisioning devices into your environment that are just running AAD for the new, Entra ID.
EID.
EID for the new devices. So any net new devices you add to your environment, let's go and join them as EID joined, right? Entra ID joined, with happy days, we go forward, it goes provisions, puts it into Intune, and then you send down that config manager client. But if we flip it around the other side, all over your existing computers, why do I need to be rushing through and doing a huge expensive project of going and interrupting every employee in the organization to make that change?
Yeah. And I'll point out that
you went with that, didn't you, Adam?
Yes, absolutely. And so I'll point this out. So largely our focus will be kind of the imagining that you're doing a greenfield. So starting fresh in the cloud for the series, because it simplifies things. Because if we have to go back and forth between on-prem scenarios and cloud only scenarios, it really muddies the waters there a little bit. So
it comes down to, we can't build your environment in our lab.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
the easy option for us is to sit there and go, conceptually, this is how it all works.
My art fell. So yeah, exactly. So we will talk about some of the on-prem opportunities as we go through things, and what the how we can do certain things from on, and how what we're talking about ties into your current on-prem infrastructure. But largely we're going to focus on your on a greenfield cloud only environment for all of our demo purposes. But the thing I will point out is or follow back on what Steve was saying. So for our environment, the path we've taken was we connected Config Manager to Intune. Then we went in and we converted all of our group policies into Intune policies. We were able to do a one-to-one mapping. There's a thing called Group Policy Analytics that helps, and we can demo that.
Again, that didn't exist 5 years ago.
No, it didn't, and the hurdle was there were no hurdles. It was just a wall. Like, hey, you have to do this manually. And there's a thing called settings catalog that we'll get into that is huge. That has been a game changer. So all of these things are available to be able to help you get from your on-prem infrastructure into the cloud. But so here's the thing. Like, a way to look at it is, if you've got all your devices managed, they're domain joined, you're building everything with a task sequence or MDT or something, you can, realizing that MDT does use task sequences, so does SEC. Sorry. Now it's totally thrown myself off. Okay, so if you're using group policies, that's an easy first step. You can go and turn on Intune policies that match your GPOs. And there's a great little setting that we'll go through on letting Intune win over your group policy. And so you can have both sets of policies deployed to your on-prem devices, and they'll be in a hybrid state, and that just simply means that they're synchronized between your on-prem Active Directory and your cloud Intra ID. It drives me nuts.
Intra ID. If you're watching this in 2 years' time, Entra ID's only just been rebranded, and we're still learning to make that change.
Yes. So anyway, your devices are synchronized, and so there's a trust relationship there that exists, and so you can deploy your Intune policies down to your on-prem domain joined devices, and over time you can say, okay, I've mapped all of the policies over. They're all in Intune, and you can just turn off your group policies. You can turn it off for specific OUs, specific devices, or for the whole org, however you want to do it. And then you've already, now you're hybrid, modern managed. So now your group policies are modern managed. Then it's okay. What do we do about apps? Well, I kind of talked through that already. You slowly start making a transition over to Intune and you take it one step at a time. The thing I've loved about being able to do that was that I was able to take all of my policies and vet them out fully in Intune before we ever took a step towards the cloud only side of things. So I was able to get all of my on-prem devices working fully in Intune. They were all fully migrated to Intune management for policies well before we ever started changing how we were building and deploying the devices and moving to cloud native Azure intra ID only autopiloted devices. And so I guess the whole point of all that is really to say that there is a wonderful migration opportunity here to get into Intune, but you can take it at the pace that is comfortable for your organization.
Definitely. That's very much the point to take from that is it's not about I have to do everything tomorrow. It's I'm going to do everything over the next N period of time that makes sense for your organization.
And we said, hey, we've been doing this for 5 years. We are still migrating. I mean, we're still in the middle of our Windows 11. I'm calling it our Windows 11 project. It's our cloud migration project. We still
modernization.
Yeah, we're still moving devices from on-prem AD into Azure AD. I'm just going to leave that one. So, it takes a long time to do this, but you've got to start somewhere, and you've got to start making the steps towards this. So one thing I will throw out here that maybe isn't as obvious to some folks when they approach this. Intune does not manage servers today.
Nope.
It may someday. That's making no promises, but if you're watching this 2 years from now, well, it doesn't right now. Okay. Maybe it does in the future. There are new things. So like specifically looking at the Defender for Endpoint, Defender has a capability of onboarding devices to the cloud. So you can onboard your servers as well as any other device into the cloud, and your servers will now show up and have a presence in your Intune portal in the cloud console in Intune. And so it kind of implies that, my servers are showing up in Intune, maybe I can manage them here, and you can't. But nope. you can deploy policies to them from the cloud. And actually, I've heard some folks talk about using Defender as a secondary kind of a health check opportunity for at least for their Intune managed devices. So if a device is reporting in for Defender, but it's inactive, the Intune agent is inactive, you may have a problem with the Intune agent on that device. And so it's kind of an extra check for that. So it's kind of cool. But similarly, Configuration Manager, it will connect into Intune, and you can display all of your servers in Intune. It's even you can actually display your devices, your workstation devices.
Yep.
That aren't Intune. If you choose not to Intune manage them yet, they'll show there as cloud attached, and there are certain security policies that you can deploy through Config Manager to those devices to connect them, and so it starts allowing you to move to the cloud, even if you're not even doing Intune management of a device. You can configure the policies in the cloud portal, get familiar with it, start getting comfortable with it, and deploy that to your fully on-prem managed devices.
Exactly. So let's quickly jump through. Obviously, we've talked about why. So let's have a quick little click on, hey, this is where you can sign up for some trials and test out the technology yourself, and follow along at home for our future videos.
I think we should just do that one as a whole separate video, Steve.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Well, stay tuned, folks. Next video is coming up.